How do you solve a problem in a village? I mean, a real problem. One that cuts right to the heart of a farmer's life, their land. Today, we're not going to bore you with a bunch of dry definitions. Nope. Instead, we're going to follow one villager's journey through the entire system from the ground up to see how it really works. Okay, let's get into it. So our story kicks off with a classic problem, a dispute between neighbors. We've got Mohan, a farmer with a small piece of land, and right next door, his neighbor, Raghu. And what you're looking at here, this is the moment their peace was totally shattered.
Now, this bund is just the little dirt boundary that separates their fields. By moving it, Raghu basically just stole a chunk of Mohan's land. Mohan was furious, but honestly, he was also pretty scared. You see, Raghu's family was powerful, and his uncle was the village sarpanch. So when Mohan confronted him, Raghu and his workers beat him up. And that single violent act is what starts Mohan's whole journey.
Okay, so what's your first move when a crime happens? Well, for Mohan, after talking with his neighbors, it was to head to the police station and file a report. But, as he was about to find out, even that simple step isn't always so simple.
So Mohan gets to the local police station to talk to the guy in charge, the station house officer, the SHO. He explains the whole story, shows him his injuries, but the SHO, he's completely dismissive. He just rudely brushes him off, saying he can't be bothered with minor complaints.
So you might be thinking, why didn't Mohan just go to a different police station? Maybe find a more helpful officer in the next town over? Well, he can't. And that's because of this really important concept called jurisdiction. As you can see here, every single police station has a specific area it's in charge of. Mohan's village is in this station's area, so legally, this is the only place he can register his case. He can't just go police station shopping.
And this is where the community really steps up. It's critical. Mohan brought his neighbors with him, the ones who saw the whole thing go down. They all backed him up, confirmed his story, and insisted that the case be registered. With all those witnesses, the officer finally had to give in and officially record the complaint.
Right, so this is huge. The assault is now officially on record. But the original problem, the land, is still up in the air. How on earth can Mohan prove that the boundary was moved? Right now, it's just his word against Raghu's. The police's job is done here, which means it's time for a different part of the rural administration to step in. To solve a fight about land, you need the official keeper of all the land records. And in Mohan's village, and thousands of others just like it, that person is called the Patwari. Let's take a closer look at what they do. So the Patwari is a government official who's in charge of a group of villages. Their main gig? Measuring land, and this is the most important part, keeping all the land records maintained and updated. Now, the name might be different depending on what state you're in. You might hear Lakepal or Kanungo, but the job is exactly the same. And believe me, the Patwari's work is super detailed. They're also the ones who organize collecting land revenue from all the farmers, and who give the government info on what crops are being grown where. And that means they have to be constantly updating their records. Anytime a farmer changes a crop or digs a new well, the Patwari has to know about it. So how does the Patwari actually prove who's right? With these two incredibly important tools. On the left, that's the official map of the village, where every single plot of land is measured and drawn out. And on the right, that's a little piece of the official register, called the Khazra record. You can think of it like a giant spreadsheet or database for the village that holds all the key info for every single plot on that map. Let's zoom in on a piece of that Khazra record for Mohan and Raghu's fields. Look how clear this is. Plot number 1 belongs to Mohan. Area, 0.75 hectares. Crop, soybean. Plot number 2 belongs to Raghu Ram. Area, 3.00 hectares. Crops, soybean and wheat. With this kind of detail, there's just no room for argument. And there it is, the solution to Mohan's entire problem. The Patwari just takes the official map and the Khazra record, walks out to the field, and measures. If what they measure on the ground doesn't match the official record, well, that's undeniable proof the boundary was moved. The whole thing gets settled by hard facts, not by fighting. So the Patwari is absolutely essential, but they're not some lone wolf out there. They're part of a much bigger government structure, a whole chain of command that makes sure this entire system actually works. This slide lays out exactly how that works. At the very bottom, you've got the Patwari doing all the on-the-ground work, but they report to senior officers at the Tehsil or Taluka level, who are called Tehsildars. And then at the very top of the pyramid, you have the district collector, who oversees the whole district.
It's a system of checks and balances designed to keep the records accurate and to make sure disputes can be heard by higher-ups if necessary.
So you see, this whole revenue department handles so much more than just arguments over fences like Mohan's. Their work touches pretty much every part of life in the village. They maintain those vital land records, they make sure farmers can get official copies when they need them, they issue important documents like caste certificates for students, and they serve as that next level for hearing disputes in the Tehsildar's office. You know, all this bureaucracy, the officers, the records, the maps, it might seem kind of complicated, but it all exists for one really fundamental reason: to protect the rights of regular people. This little poem just beautifully sums up a struggle that, until pretty recently, was actually written into law. For generations, land and property, that was a man's world. It left women with no legal claim to their own family's home.
But then, something huge happened. The Hindu Succession Amendment Act of 2005 completely changed the game. Just look at this comparison. Under the old law, a father's property, it was divided only among his sons. But under the new law, sons, daughters, and their mother all get an equal share. This was a monumental shift.
And this is where it all comes full circle. For a law like this to mean anything in the real world, the system we've been talking about has to work. The very same Patwari who settled Mohan's dispute is also the person who has to update the Kastra record to add the names of daughters and mothers. That one little update on a piece of paper gives women like Sudha the real legal power to farm their own land and build their own financial security. And let's not forget the mind-boggling scale of all this. We're talking about more than 600,000 villages in India. Every single one of them depends on this administrative machine to keep order, protect people's rights, and settle disputes. It is a massive and absolutely essential job. So, as Mohan's story showed us, these records are so much more than just ink on paper. They're the foundation of rural life, they're the difference between chaos and order, they're what lets you buy land, get a loan from a bank, or divide your property fairly among your kids. It all comes down to having an official, trusted record, which kind of makes you think, doesn't it? What are the records that define and protect your property, your identity, and your most important rights?